I am Craig Cedillo. In this case, Craig Cedillo, DDS,
Oh, yeah.
of Visalia, California. My office's name is Smile Visalia.
Perfect. Okay, so the first question I have for you is, what is the hardest part of owning a practice?
The hardest part is probably the business part.
Yeah.
And so if you could break that down into actual business things that you would encounter if you were the only person there, and then the other part is if you have a staff, that can be a whole separate thing. And within the last few years, the biggest concern is finding staff that not only are competent but will show up to work, which didn't used to be a thing, but it's been a thing in the last 5 years. But I have a really good staff, and they check all the boxes there.
Awesome. Second question is, why dentistry over medical?
Okay, also a good question. In my case, it was just because when I was an orthodontist patient, I became interested in that, and I found out that I had to go through dental school to get to that point, and I chose not to go as far as that once I finished dental school, because in my situation, I just wanted to get out and start working versus go to 3 more years of school, and that's where I am.
Okay, cool. And how long were you in school post-high school graduation?
Post-high school. Well, if you put it all together, probably 3 to 4 years. I spread it out over some time because I stopped for 2 years and I was in the Dominican Republic for church service stuff.
Oh, nice.
And I didn't go full-time to college before that. Once I got back from the Dominican Republic, I went year-round till I got my prerequisites done for dental school. And so if you just go the prerequisite route, it probably doesn't take you 4 full years. If you
Oh, so you didn't get your bachelor's?
No, I could have. I qualified for it, but I didn't stay and do it. I qualified for a degree in medical biology from the University of Utah, but I didn't go the last quarter. I took a class that I needed to get into dental school because I wanted to enter at a particular time rather than putting off another year.
Perfect. And if you had a piece of advice for a future dentist, what would it be?
Okay, great. Other than the obvious, which is, make sure you have all the information to be, qualified to do the dentistry that you want to do, whether it's general or a specialty like endodontics. Learn the business side as soon as you can. As a student, we got almost no exposure to that, and our minds were not there at all, even though we did have a couple of guest speakers who tried to convey that to us. But most of the instructors that we were exposed to were probably strictly academic versus in the business world. Some of them were, and that wasn't really driven home to us, to my memory, which makes sense because you're trying to learn a brand new science and all that goes with that. But unless you're going to be an employee, and a lot of people do choose that route when they get out of dental school, learning the business side of it would be extremely helpful, and that in itself is a constantly changing thing, with tax laws and employee laws and all those things that change, yearly pretty much.
So this is kind of off script, but how long would you say? So you graduated dental school, then did you do like a 1-year residency?
No, I didn't, but many do that, and that's a great idea if you're able to do that, because it's another way to move towards that end of your career a little more slowly with guidance, versus you graduate and you start working, say, for a clinic the following month after you get your license. So that's a great idea because you can expose yourself to more in-depth procedures, things that you wouldn't been able to cover in dental school. So a lot of people do what's called general practice residency.
Yeah.
That's a great idea, and I would have done that had I been in a position to do it, but I wasn't because I was married and I had a 3-4-year-old at the time. So I wanted to start working as
So
soon
you
as
just
possible.
opened up a practice?
No, I didn't open up practice. I was an employee first for a couple of years.
Okay.
And after that, I was an employee for probably a total of 4 years. And by that time, I was looking for an office, and I found one here that was being sold by the owner, and I just took over that.
Okay. So okay, I'm completely going off script, but I'm curious. So was it like a low income practice? 'Cause I know like there's some programs where it's like if you sign a contract for X amount of years and they like pay off your tuition.
Oh, I see. No, I didn't.
Or you just.
No, I wasn't in one of those programs,
Okay.
but those are available too. You can do it you can even do it in the armed services. I almost accepted a scholarship from the Navy. They would pay for my dental school and all of my living expenses, and then I would give them 4 years after that.
Mm.
But the scholarship was discontinued the day I was supposed to sign it, so I didn't take the next one available because that wasn't as good a deal for me, so I didn't do that. But there's a lot of things like that that are available to pay your tuition while you work on an Indian reservation, or for the military, or just for the government in another, an underserved area, so to speak, where they need dentistry, but there's none out there. So a lot of those things are available, and I'm sure they change year to year, depending on availability.
Yeah. Okay. Second section. What was your favorite science subject in undergrad?
Oh boy.
I know it's probably
Favorite science subject.
I'm learning some things here too.
Let's think like prereqs for dental school.
Yeah, anatomy's fun
Oh no.
because okay, anatomy's fun because you're learning about yourself, and it's you can put it on flashcards. And you can reach around. Oh yeah, that's where my that's where that wrist bone is. Stuff like that. Anatomy's fun in that way. Other stuff like Mendel's law of crossbreeding flowers and.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm learning that right now.
Not so interesting.
Not so interesting. The
Not-
whole
not
like
it-
dominant recessive alleles, that kind of stuff. Yeah, everyone. Well, I don't have to take anatomy because it's not a prereq for UOP, USC, whatever. It's recommended. I don't know if I'll take it. If I have enough time, I'll take it. But if not, I won't. Everyone that I've heard has taken it at Fresno State. There's one professor, and everybody basically wants to rip their hair out of their heads
For anatomy.
for anatomy.
Just
Hate it.
gross anatomy you're talking about, not just dental anatomy, right?
No, not dental anatomy.
Gross anatomy where you're cutting up cadavers and stuff.
Yeah, the whole thing.
That's pretty cool. That's a once in a
So weird.
lifetime thing. You won't regret doing it. It's kind of freaky at first, but
No, it is. Yeah, I don't
You
know.
had to do that? You had to like,
take apart bodies, yeah.
really?
Four-man teams assigned to a body.
Uh-huh.
Every time we were in there, we had to
And you
put.
had to basically like almost dissect it? Like
Yeah, yeah.
learn about the organs and
Yeah, we.
Did
cut-
anyone pass out?
No.
No?
It's not like you think it'll be. You can compare it to jumping out of an airplane. It sounds scary, but when you're up there and you're looking down, it's for some reason you don't.
Interesting, it's like.
Yeah. So it's more like, hey, this is really cool. I'm gonna open this guy's head with a saw.
No.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Okay, alright. How would you say taking rigorous science courses in college prepared you for your career?
You learn how to learn. So you have a short amount of time to learn things that you didn't know, and so you learn how to learn. You learn how to look at a subject and decide, okay, what's interesting about this to me that's going to help me remember it? How can I relate it to something in my life, even if it's just, the new terminology sounds like the name of one of your friends. If that helps you remember it, then great.
Yeah, that's cool. Alright, let's see. What was your favorite study method for biology and chemistry classes?
Well,
I'm at a crossroad right now because I love inorganic chem, love it. But bio, oh my gosh, you cannot drag me to lecture. It's that
Really?
bad. Yeah.
Well, it might be the speaker. because the speaker can have a lot to do with it. Biology's very interesting because again, it applies to you
Like plant
personally.
biology.
Oh, plant biology.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you have to look at some subjects like that. Like this is just a hurdle I have to climb over to get to the class that I want to get to, and you'll forget all the information as soon as you take the test anyway, probably.
Exactly.
Unless it's something you're going to use, and probably you're not for plant biology.
But would you say like there's a difference in studying for classes that are more like analytical versus like conceptual?
A different. Yeah, because conceptual things are more difficult. I think they're more difficult to relate to yourself. Anything you can relate to yourself, it's easier to remember. Sorry, let me shut that off. There, okay. Analytical versus conceptual. Usually the analytical classes are going to be the science classes where you're going to be using that stuff on a daily basis, and if you can, and if you have a new subject, but you know I'm going to be using this, then it's more interesting to you, and you want to learn it versus I have to learn this, you know.
Yeah. Ugh. It's horrible. Okay. Now we're on to the chemistry questions. These are going to be the harder ones. Last section though. What is a principle of chemistry that can be directly applied to dentistry?
That's interesting. Well, the obvious one is the chemicals that you use, which are mostly anesthetics, but some of it's materials, and so it would be helpful when you're taking your chemistry classes if you were aware, okay, this applies to the materials that I use when I place a composite or put some augmenting the bone for an implant or something like that. That would make it way more interesting because that's applicable, and they don't do that because you're taking chemistry with everybody who's going to, go into whatever field of science they're going to go into. So specifically, I suppose for sure the anesthetic chemistry is the most helpful, the most interesting. You will use it every day unless you're an orthodontist, and knowing how that works, why it works, that's definitely helpful because all anesthetics are different. Some of them have epinephrine, some don't. And so if you understand which anesthetic you're using, why you're using it, you can understand what to expect. There's a lot of, this is what I expect in dentistry, but it doesn't happen the way I expect, and so now what do I do? And you fall back on experience, and the less of that you have to fall back on science that you may or may not remember from class. So chemistry as it applies to your anesthetics, I would say is your most common use, most applicable.
How do acid-base reactions apply to fillings and crowns?
Fillings and crayons. I don't know if they do.
You
I don't know if they do.
Like, think of it, I guess I'm thinking like, for a filling, is there anything that you mix together? Like, are you conjoining two?
Well, if you're using an amalgam, yeah, you're using a lot of different metals and chemicals. So you could say it could apply there, because once those things come together, they do start a chemical reaction, which makes the powder and the liquid turn into essentially a solid rock. That's not used hardly at all anymore.
Okay.
So it's composite, and maybe the acid-base reaction applies to not anymore. A tooth-colored filling, a composite, sticks to the surface of the tooth with adhesive, and when adhesive started, you did have two separate chemicals that you would mix together, but not anymore.
No.
It's already, you can still get that, but almost everyone uses something that's already mixed in a bottle. You just shake it and paint it onto the tooth surface, and that's it. I'm not sure if there's an acid-base reaction taking place there or not.
Okay, cool. How does organic chemistry help you understand the materials you use, such as composites and adhesives?
Probably the acid that's produced by bacteria when they consume carbohydrates, which will demineralize tooth structure around a filling or a crown. That's important to know. Most people don't. Most patients don't know about that, and so. But that's, I would say, that's sort of the basic. That's the basic organic chemistry, carbon-based chemistry.
Cool. Last question. From a biochemical point of view, how does teeth whitening work?
It's always hydrogen peroxide that oxidizes the tooth surface, and depending on how much of that there is in the product, it works quicker or more slowly. Some people are very sensitive to it, and the tooth can be desensitized before and or after. But that's essentially it. When they say bleaching teeth, they're really talking about oxidizing the surface of the tooth.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much for your time, and
You're
that
welcome.
ends our interview.